Captain Lee Daeho stood at the back of the massive council chamber, watching hundreds of alien beings argue in dozens of different languages. The universal translator in his ear worked overtime, turning clicks, whistles, and electronic buzzes into words he could understand. Most of those words were not very nice. The Galactic Council met on Nexus Prime, a huge space station that floated between 3 stars. It was supposed to be neutral ground where all the smart alien races could talk about important things. Right now they were talking about war. Lee adjusted his simple blue uniform and tried to look professional. Next to him, Commander Park Ji-woo checked her weapon for the 10th time. She was his security officer, and she did not like being surrounded by so many aliens who clearly thought humans were stupid. "They are really going at it today," Park whispered. Lee nodded. The aliens were scared, and scared aliens made a lot of noise. At the center of the chamber, a being that looked like walking crystal was begging for help. Veltar was the ambassador from something called the Kepler Coalition. His people were miners who dug up rare metals from dead planets. They were peaceful and had no real weapons. "Please." Veltar's voice came through the translator as a sad whistle. "The Vorthak Empire has given us 7 days to surrender everything we own. If we do not give them our worlds, they will kill everyone." The alien representatives shifted in their seats. Some looked away. Others made dismissive sounds. A tall gray alien with too many arms stood up. Lee recognized him as the Prime Minister from the Arcturus hegemony. His people controlled half the galaxy's trade routes and thought they were very important. "The Vorthak Empire has quantum disruptors and antimatter cannons," the Arcturian said in a bored voice. "They have ships that can phase through solid matter. What exactly do you expect us to do against such technology?" Another alien, this one looking like a floating metal sphere, spoke up. "The Silicon Confederacy cannot risk our fleets against Vorthak quantum weapons. Our ships would be destroyed before we could even fire back." A third voice joined in, though Lee could not see who was speaking. "The Psionic Collective agrees. The Vorthak military is too advanced. Any species that challenges them will be wiped out." Veltar's crystal body flickered with desperate colors. "But if no one helps us, they will take our worlds and enslave our people. Then they will want more. They will not stop with just the Kepler Coalition." "That is unfortunate," the Arcturian Prime Minister said, "but that is reality. The Vorthak have technology that is thousands of years ahead of most species. They have never lost a war." Lee watched the other aliens nod in agreement. These were supposed to be the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were giving up, without even trying to fight. Dr. Kim So-min, who was sitting in the human observer section, looked angry. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. She had spent years learning about different alien cultures, and she knew that most of them were actually good people. Seeing them abandon the Kepler Coalition made her sick. Lee made a decision. He stepped forward and cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said in a loud, clear voice. The entire chamber went quiet. Hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and other things turned to look at him. Most of them had never seen a human up close before. "The United Earth Defense Force would like to offer military assistance to the Kepler Coalition," Lee announced. For a moment, nobody made a sound. Then someone started laughing. Then someone else joined in. Within seconds, the entire chamber was filled with the alien equivalent of laughter. It sounded like a broken orchestra. The Arcturian Prime Minister was making a wheezing sound that Lee's translator said meant extreme amusement. "Did the human just offer to fight the Vorthak Empire?" the Prime Minister asked the chamber. More laughter filled the air. "Humans have only had faster-than-light travel for what, 50 of their years?" another alien called out. "They still use kinetic weapons, metal bullets and explosives." "How adorable," said a third voice. "They think their primitive technology can stand against quantum phase disruptors." Lee felt his face get hot, but he kept his expression calm. Park's hand moved closer to her weapon, but Lee gave her a small shake of his head. The Arcturian Prime Minister stood up again, still making that wheezing laugh sound. "Captain Lee, is it? Your species has achieved much in a short time, but let me explain something to you. The Vorthak Empire has weapons that can tear apart the fabric of space itself. They have shields that exist in multiple dimensions at once. Their smallest warship could destroy your entire home fleet. And yet, Lee said quietly, we are still offering to help. This caused another wave of laughter, but this time it sounded meaner. A new voice cut through the noise. It was deep and electronic, and it made everyone stop laughing immediately. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a machine. I am War Marshal Krixtal of the Vorthak Empire, the hologram announced. I have been monitoring this pathetic display. The entire chamber went dead silent. The offer from the human is amusing, Krixtal continued. Very well. Let the humans come. It will provide entertainment for my warriors before we begin the cleansing of Kepler worlds. The hologram flickered and disappeared. Veltar's crystal body had gone completely dark. The Kepler Coalition's only hope was a species that everyone thought was too primitive to matter. Lee looked around the chamber, at all the powerful aliens who had refused to help. We will need 3 days to reach the Kepler system, he said. We suggest that any civilians who want to evacuate should do so quickly. As Lee and his team left the chamber, he could hear the aliens starting to argue again. Some were laughing about the humans' foolishness. Others were already making bets about how quickly the human ships would be destroyed. Park waited until they were in the hallway before speaking. Sir, do you really think we can win against the Vorthak? Lee smiled, for the first time that day. Commander, these aliens have no idea what humans are capable of when someone threatens innocent people. Dr. Kim caught up with them as they headed toward their shuttle. Captain, I have been studying Vorthak military tactics. They rely completely on energy-based weapons and shields. I do not think they have ever fought anyone who uses our kind of weapons. Then they are about to get a very unpleasant surprise, Lee said. As their shuttle left Nexus Prime, Lee looked back at the massive station filled with advanced alien civilizations. They had all the technology in the galaxy, but they had forgotten something important. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem was not with the fanciest weapon, but with the willingness to stand up and fight for what was right. The Vorthak Empire was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Admiral Choi Hyunwoo stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching dozens of screens show activity across the solar system. Ships were moving, weapons were being loaded, and soldiers were getting ready for war. The aliens at the Galactic Council thought humans were weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Status report, Choi said to his aide, a young officer named Lieutenant No. All fleets are responding, sir. The Mars shipyards are releasing the heavy ships from storage. The asteroid belt mining stations are converting to weapon production. Earth's orbital platforms are loading kinetic rounds. Choi nodded. The aliens monitoring human communications would see normal military chatter. They would not understand what they were really hearing. On Mars, massive doors were opening in the sides of mountains. These doors had been sealed for 20 years, hiding construction projects that most humans did not even know about. Chief Engineer Kang Tai-sung watched as ships the size of cities emerged from their hiding places. How many dreadnoughts do we have ready? He asked his assistant. 12, sir, plus 47 heavy cruisers and over 200 destroyers, all equipped with the new kinetic systems. Kang smiled. The aliens thought human ships were small and weak, because that was what humans let them see. The real fleet had been built, in secret, preparing for the day when Earth might need to fight a real war. The ships coming out of the Mars yards were not pretty. They looked like flying bricks covered in armor plating. Every surface was covered with weapons that the aliens would not recognize. Railguns, mass drivers, and kinetic cannons filled every available space. Sir, the assistant said, the aliens are asking about our ship designs. They want to know why we use so much armor instead of shields. Tell them we like to build things that last, Kang replied. On Luna, Colonel Yoon Min-ho was briefing his special forces teams. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were trained to fight in any environment, against any enemy, using any weapon they could find. Listen up, Yoon said to the assembled troops. The aliens we are going to fight use energy weapons and quantum shields. They have never fought anyone who uses kinetic weapons. They have never fought humans. Sergeant O. Jin Woo raised his hand. Sir, what do we know about their tactics? They rely on technology to win battles. Their ships are fast and their weapons are powerful, but they fight like a computer program. They do not adapt quickly to new situations. The soldiers nodded. Human military doctrine was based on being flexible and creative. Every soldier was trained to think for themselves and find new solutions to problems. Remember, Yoon continued, we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for people who cannot fight for themselves. The Kepler Coalition are miners and farmers. They have families. The Vorthak want to kill them all. Back on Luna Base, Dr. Kim So-min was studying everything she could find about Vorthak military technology. She had been right about their weakness, but she needed to be sure. Admiral, she said, entering Choi's office with a tablet full of data, I have been analyzing Vorthak battle reports from their previous wars. What did you find? They have never lost because they have never fought anyone who uses kinetic weapons. Every species they conquered used energy-based technology. Lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams. The Vorthak developed shields and armor specifically to stop those weapons. Choi leaned back in his chair. And kinetic weapons? A chunk of metal moving at 20% of light speed does not care about quantum shields, sir. Their ships are not designed to stop solid objects. This was exactly what Choi wanted to hear. Human weapons were not energy-based. They were simple, brutal, and effective. A railgun fired a piece of metal very, very fast. It did not matter how advanced your shields were if a tungsten rod hit your ship at relativistic speeds. Lieutenant Bae Yoon-ji was in the pilot ready room on the carrier Seoul's Pride, briefing her fighter squadron. These were not the sleek energy fighters that other species used. Human fighters were armored, heavily armed, and built to survive. The enemy fighters phase in and out of normal space, she told her pilots. They think this makes them impossible to hit. How do we target something that keeps disappearing? Asked one of the younger pilots. We do not target where they are. Bae replied with a grin. We target where they are going to be. Our computers have been analyzing their phase patterns. They are predictable. Human tactics were different from what the rest of the galaxy used. Other species tried to fight fair, honorable battles. Humans fought to win. On the outer edges of the solar system, the deep space monitoring stations were tracking Vorthak fleet movements. The enemy was taking their time, confident that the humans would be easy to defeat. Captain Song Hye-rin was on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Seoul's Hammer, one of the new ships from the Mars yards. Her ship was 3 times larger than anything the aliens had seen humans use before. Ma'am, her tactical officer navigator Han Soo-young reported. We are receiving data from the scout ships. The Vorthak fleet is moving slowly, stopping to destroy civilian targets along the way. Song's jaw tightened. The Vorthak were not just conquering the Kepler Coalition. They were terrorizing innocent people for fun. How long until we reach the combat zone? She asked. 18 hours at maximum burn. Captain, push the engines harder. Those people have been waiting for help long enough. Back on Earth, the news networks were showing footage of human fleets launching from bases around the solar system. Most people on Earth did not know how powerful their military really was. They saw ships leaving and assumed they were going to fight a hopeless battle against superior aliens. They were wrong about the hopeless part. General Lim Sang-wook was coordinating ground forces from his command bunker. If the space battle went well, his soldiers might need to liberate occupied planets. Sir, his aide reported, we have transport ships ready to carry 50,000 Marines. They are equipped for extended planetary operations. Good. Make sure they have extra medical supplies. We will be treating alien civilians as well as our own wounded. This was something the Vorthak would not expect. Human soldiers were trained to help non-combatants, not hurt them. It was one of the things that made humans different from other species in the galaxy. Major Kwon Do-hyun was reviewing intelligence reports from Kepler Coalition refugees. The stories they told were heartbreaking. Entire cities destroyed, families separated, children crying for parents they would never see again. Sir, his analyst said, The Vorthak are not just conquering these worlds, they are making examples of them. They want other species to be too scared to resist. Then they picked the wrong species to threaten, Quan replied. Humans had a saying, pick on someone your own size. The Vorthak had chosen to pick on defenseless miners and farmers. Now they were going to learn what happened when you made humans angry. Dr. Shin A-young was studying Vorthak psychology, trying to understand how they thought. She had discovered something interesting. Admiral, she told Choi over the communication system, the Vorthak have never retreated from a battle, ever. They believe retreat is impossible because their technology is superior to everyone else's. What happens when they realize they are losing? I do not know, sir. They have never been in that situation before. As the human fleets moved toward the Kepler system, alien observers throughout the galaxy were watching. Most of them expected to see the humans destroyed quickly. Some felt sorry for the brave but foolish species that thought they could fight the mighty Vorthak Empire. None of them understood what was really about to happen. The Vorthak had spent centuries conquering species that fought with energy weapons and quantum technology. They had never fought anyone who used kinetic weapons, armor plating, and human stubbornness. They were about to get an education. War Marshal Crixtal stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final assault on Haven Prime begin. The capital world of the Kepler Coalition was putting up pathetic resistance. Their energy weapons barely scratched Vorthak shields, and their ships were falling apart under quantum disruptor fire. How long until the planet surrenders? He asked his tactical officer. 3 hours, War Marshal. Maybe less. Their orbital defense platforms are already destroyed. Crixtal was pleased. The Kepler Coalition had been easier to conquer than most species. Soon his empire would control all their mining worlds and rare mineral deposits. War Marshal, his communications officer, called out, "We are detecting new ships entering the system." More Kepler reinforcements? No, sir. The signatures are different. Crixtal looked at the main screen as dozens of new contacts appeared. The ships were blocky and ugly, covered in what looked like primitive armor plating. They moved in formations that seemed random compared to the elegant battle lines that civilized species used. Those must be the humans, Crixtal said with amusement. How many ships do they have? 67 vessels of various sizes, sir. Some of them are quite large. Crixtal was surprised. Intelligence reports had said humans only had small ships. These vessels were massive. The largest one was bigger than his own flagship. Perhaps they are cargo ships trying to evacuate civilians, suggested his tactical officer. Let us find out, Crixtal said. Open a communication channel. The main screen showed the bridge of the human flagship. A woman in a simple blue uniform looked back at him with calm, steady eyes. I am Captain Song Heerin of the United Earth Defense Force ship Soul's Hammer, she said. You are in violation of Galactic Council treaties by attacking a peaceful species. Withdraw your forces immediately. Crixtal laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Captain Song, I am War Marshal Crixtal of the Vorthak Empire. We have been fighting wars since before your species learned to make fire. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our advanced technology. We shall see, Song replied, and cut the communication. Crixtal was still chuckling when his weapons officer spoke up. War Marshal, the humans are moving into attack formation. Show me. The human ships were spreading out in a pattern that made no sense to Vorthak tactical doctrine. Instead of forming neat battle lines, they were scattered across a wide area of space. They have no discipline, Crixtal observed. Destroy them quickly so we can get back to conquering this planet. The Vorthak fleet turned to face the humans. Their ships were beautiful and deadly, with smooth curves and glowing energy weapons. They looked like works of art compared to the crude human vessels. All ships prepare quantum disruptors, Crixtal ordered. Target their largest ships first. The space between the two fleets filled with brilliant energy beams. Quantum disruptors could tear apart the fabric of space itself. They had never failed to destroy any target. The beams struck the human ships and bounced off. What? Crixtal stared at the tactical display in confusion. Fire again! More energy beams lanced out, striking human armor plating. The beams scattered, harmlessly into space. The human ships did not even slow down. "War Marshal," his tactical officer said in a worried voice. "Their armor is not absorbing our weapons. It is reflecting them. That is impossible. Nothing can reflect quantum disruptors." On the bridge of Sol's Hammer, Captain Song was watching her tactical display with satisfaction. The human fleet had been designed specifically to fight energy-based weapons. Their armor was not just thick metal plating. It was layers of different materials designed to scatter and redirect energy beams. "Navigator Han, what is our status?" Song asked. "All ships reporting minimal damage, Captain. The enemy weapons are exactly what Dr. Kim predicted." Song nodded. Human scientists had studied every energy weapon design in the galaxy. They knew how to stop them. "All ships, return fire. Full kinetic barrage." The human fleet opened fire, and the Vorthak got their first look at human weapons technology. Railguns fired tungsten rods at 20% of light speed. Mass drivers hurled chunks of dense metal faster than most ships could move. Kinetic cannons shot streams of projectiles that filled entire sections of space with deadly metal. The Vorthak had never seen anything like it. Their quantum shields were designed to stop energy weapons by phasing them into other dimensions. But the shields could not phase solid matter. The tungsten rods passed right through the shields as if they were not there. The first Vorthak ship to be hit simply disappeared. One moment it was there, the next moment it was a cloud of expanding debris. The relativistic tungsten rod had punched completely through the ship from bow to stern. "Evasive maneuvers." Crystal screamed, but it was too late. More human projectiles were already in flight. The Vorthak ships were fast, but they could not outrun metal moving at relativistic speeds. Ship after ship exploded as kinetic rounds tore through their hulls. "War Marshal," his tactical officer reported in panic. "We cannot stop their weapons. Our shields are useless. Fire antimatter torpedoes, everything we have." The Vorthak launched their most powerful weapons. Antimatter torpedoes could destroy entire moons. They streaked toward the human fleet, leaving trails of deadly energy. The torpedoes struck human ships and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. For a moment, the Vorthak thought they had won. Then the light faded and the human ships were still there. "How?" Crystal whispered. Human ships were not just armored against energy weapons, they were designed to survive in the worst conditions imaginable. Multiple hulls, redundant systems, and armor that could absorb incredible amounts of energy. The antimatter explosions had damaged them, but they kept fighting. Lieutenant Bei Yunji launched her fighter squadron from the carrier Sol's Pride. Her pilots had been waiting for this moment. "Remember," she told them over the radio, "the enemy fighters phase in and out of normal space. Do not try to chase them. Fire where they are going to appear." The Vorthak fighters were elegant, deadly machines that could phase through solid matter. They had never been defeated in combat, but they followed predictable patterns when they phased, and human computers had figured those patterns out. As the first wave of Vorthak fighters phased back into normal space, they found human projectiles, waiting for them. Sergeant Oh Jin-woo was on one of the Marine assault ships watching the space battle through the ship's cameras. He had never seen anything like it. The famous Vorthak fleet was being torn apart by human weapons. "Sir," one of his Marines said, "are we actually winning?" "Looks like it," Oh replied. "The aliens never learned how to fight kinetic weapons." On the Vorthak flagship, War Marshal Krixtal was watching his fleet die. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were being destroyed by primitive human technology. "War Marshal," his communications officer said. "Several ships are requesting permission to retreat." Krixtal had never given such an order before. The Vorthak Empire had never retreated from any battle. "Sir," his tactical officer added, "we have lost 60% of our fleet. Their weapons are too effective against our technology." Another human kinetic round struck a nearby ship, and Krixtal watched it break apart. The humans were not just winning, they were dominating. "All ships," he said quietly, "begin withdrawal to hyperspace." "Sir?" The officer looked confused. "Did you say retreat?" I said, "Withdraw." Krixtal snapped. But when the surviving Vorthak ships tried to escape to hyperspace, they discovered another problem. Human ships were faster in hyperspace than anyone had expected. The crude-looking human vessels that seemed so primitive were actually more advanced than Vorthak technology in some ways. Captain Song watched the enemy fleet trying to flee and opened a communication channel to Admiral Choi. "Admiral, the enemy is attempting to retreat. Should we pursue?" "Negative, Captain. Let them go. But make sure they understand the message." Song smiled and opened a channel to the Vorthak flagship. "War Marshal Krixtal," she said calmly. "You are leaving Kepler space now. Do not come back." Hombre. Haven Prime, the Kepler Coalition defenders watched in amazement as the mighty Vorthak fleet limped away into hyperspace. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Veltar, the Kepler ambassador, sent a message to the human fleet. "Captain Song, we do not know how to thank you. You have saved our entire civilization." "No thanks needed," Song replied. "We just did what was right." But across the galaxy, news of the battle was already spreading. The Vorthak Empire had been defeated. The humans, who everyone thought were weak and primitive, had won a complete victory. The galaxy was about to discover that humans were full of surprises. The news reached Nexus Prime in less than 6 hours. The same Galactic Council chamber that had laughed at Captain Lee Dae-ho was now filled with shocked silence. The Arcturian Prime Minister stared at the battle reports with all 4 of his arms, shaking. "This cannot be accurate," he said to his aide. "The Vorthak fleet was destroyed? Completely?" "Yes, sir. 67% casualties in less than 4 hours of combat. The survivors fled the system." Around the chamber, other alien representatives were having similar conversations. The Vorthak Empire had been the most feared military force in the galaxy for over 300 years. They had never lost a single battle. Now they had been defeated by humans, the species that everyone had dismissed as primitive. The Silicani Confederacy representative, a floating metal sphere, was analyzing the combat data. "Their weapons, I do not understand. How can metal projectiles be more effective than quantum disruptors?" "Because," said a new voice from the chamber entrance, "you have all forgotten that sometimes the old ways work better than the new ways." Captain Lee Dae-ho walked into the chamber, still wearing his simple blue uniform. But now nobody was laughing at him. "The human military uses kinetic weapons because they work," Lee continued. "Energy shields cannot stop solid matter moving. At high speed, it is basic physics." The Arcturian Prime Minister stood up slowly. "Captain Lee, we may have misjudged your species' capabilities." "Yes," Lee said simply. "You did." Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, the human fleet was not celebrating their victory. They were working. Admiral Choi had given clear orders: pursue the enemy and make sure they could not regroup. General Lim Sang-wook was on the surface of Haven Prime with his Marines, helping to organize relief efforts for the civilian population. The Vorthak had destroyed cities and separated families during their attack. "Sir," Major Kwon Do-hyun reported, "we have located 3 prisoner camps where the Vorthak were holding Kepler civilians. Should we send rescue teams?" "Already done," Lim replied. "Sergeant O is leading the first team in now." The human approach to warfare confused many alien observers. Most species conquered planets to control them. Humans seemed more interested in helping the people who lived there. Dr. Shin A-young was studying reports from Vorthak communication intercepts. What she found was disturbing. "Admiral," she told Choi over the secure channel, "the Vorthak are not just retreating. They are in complete panic. They have never lost a battle before and they do not know how to respond." "Are they likely to surrender?" Choi asked. "Unknown, sir, but they are calling for reinforcements from their core systems. A lot of reinforcements." Choi nodded grimly. The humans had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. Captain Song Hyerin was leading a task force to the next Vorthak-occupied system. Her orders were simple: liberate any prisoners and drive the enemy out. "Captain," Navigator Han Soo-young reported, "we are detecting a large Vorthak garrison on the 3rd planet. They appear to be strip mining the surface." "Any civilians?" "Yes, ma'am. The planet was home to a species called the Zephyrians, bird-like beings mostly peaceful. Song's expression hardened. The Vorthak were not just conquering worlds. They were destroying entire civilizations to steal their resources. Signal the fleet. We are going to free those people. The attack on the Vorthak garrison was even more one-sided than the first battle. The enemy had learned nothing from their defeat at Haven Prime. They still used the same energy weapons and quantum shields that had failed before. Lieutenant Bei Yunji led her fighters against the orbital defense platforms while the heavy ships bombarded the surface installations with kinetic strikes. Within 2 hours, the Vorthak garrison was destroyed and the Zephyrian prisoners were free. But the most important moment came when the liberated aliens saw human soldiers for the first time. Corporal Li Min-young was treating wounded Zephyrians in a field hospital when one of them, an elderly bird-like being, grabbed her arm with a wing. You came to save us?" the Zephyrian asked in broken galactic standard. "Of course," Li replied, checking the alien's injuries. "That is what we do." "But why? We are not your people. We have nothing to give you in return." Li looked surprised by the question. "You needed help, that is reason enough." The Zephyrian stared at her for a long moment, then made a sound that the universal translator could not interpret. Li realized the being was crying. "No one has ever fought for us before," the Zephyrian whispered. News of the second human victory spread even faster than the first. Species across the galaxy were starting to realize that something had changed. The humans were not just winning battles, they were changing the entire balance of power. On the Vorthak homeworld, Emperor Zexhai was meeting with his military advisors. The mighty ruler of the Vorthak Empire was experiencing something new. Fear. "How many ships do the humans have?" he demanded. "Unknown, Majesty. Intelligence suggests their fleet is much larger than we initially believed. Our spies reported only small patrol vessels, but they have been hiding their true military strength. And their weapons? Kinetic projectiles, moving at relativistic speeds, Majesty. Our shields cannot stop them, and our armor is not designed to resist solid impacts at such velocities." Emperor Zexhai had built his empire by conquering species with advanced technology. He had never fought anyone who used simple, brutal weapons that just punched holes in things. "Bring me more ships," he ordered. "Every vessel in the empire. We will overwhelm them with numbers." But his advisors looked uncomfortable. "Majesty," one of them said carefully, "the other species are watching. If we lose too many ships fighting the humans, what? The species we have conquered might think we are weak. They might rebel." This was the Vorthak Empire's greatest fear. Their rule was based on the belief that they were invincible. If that belief was shattered, their entire empire could collapse. Back in human space, Colonel Yoon Min-ho was briefing his special forces on their next mission. The humans were not content to just drive the Vorthak out of a few systems. They were going to shut down the entire invasion. "Intelligence indicates that the Vorthak have a major supply base in the Rigel sector," Yoon explained to his teams. "If we can destroy it, we can cut off supplies to their entire invasion force." "How heavily defended is it?" asked one of the officers. "Very. But they are not expecting a ground assault. All their defenses are designed to stop ships, not soldiers." The mission was a complete success. Human special forces infiltrated the supply base, planted explosives in key locations, and escaped before the Vorthak knew what had happened. The explosion could be seen from orbit. Dr. Kim So-min was analyzing Vorthak psychology reports when she made an important discovery. "Admiral," she told Choi excitedly, "I think I know why the Vorthak are so confused by our tactics." "Explain." "They have spent centuries fighting species that use advanced technology. Energy weapons, quantum shields, antimatter cores. Everyone tries to out-tech everyone else, but humans took a different approach. We focused on making simple weapons work better," Choi agreed. "Exactly. While other species were perfecting energy shields, humans were perfecting the art of throwing rocks really, really fast." It was a crude way to put it, but Kim was right. Human military doctrine was based on the principle that the best weapon was the one that worked, not the one that was most advanced. The third human victory came at the Tau Ceti system, where a Vorthak fleet was preparing to attack a peaceful agricultural world. The farmers had no defenses except a distress signal that the humans intercepted. Captain Song arrived with her task force just as the Vorthak were beginning their bombardment. The battle lasted less than 3 hours. The Vorthak fleet was destroyed and not a single human ship was lost. But the most important moment came after the battle, when the grateful farmers invited human officers to dinner. "We do not understand," said the lead farmer, a being that looked like a walking tree. "Why do humans help strangers? What do you gain from fighting our battles?" Captain Song thought about the question for a moment. "We gain the knowledge that innocent people are safe," she said finally. "That is worth more than money or territory." The farmer was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that would be repeated across the galaxy in the days to come. "We always thought the most advanced species would be the strongest. But maybe the most advanced species is the one that cares about others." By the end of the week, the Vorthak Empire had lost 12 major battles to human forces. Their invasion of Kepler space had collapsed completely, and their fleets were in full retreat. But more importantly, word was spreading throughout the galaxy that humanity was different from other advanced species. They did not conquer for profit or glory. They fought to protect those who could not protect themselves. Species that had been enslaved by the Vorthak for generations were starting to hope that maybe, finally, someone was strong enough to set them free. The galaxy was about to discover that humans had a saying: "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing." And humans had never been very good at doing nothing when someone needed help. 3 months after the first battle at Haven Prime, the human fleet arrived at the edge of Vorthak home space. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the massive enemy homeworld on the main screen. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we are detecting over 300 Vorthak ships in defensive positions around the planet. They have gathered their entire remaining fleet." Choi nodded. The Vorthak Empire was making their final stand. After losing battle after battle to human forces, they had pulled back all their ships to defend their most important world. "Are the surrender terms ready?" Choi asked. His staff looked surprised. Most species would have started shooting immediately, but Admiral Choi had other plans. "Sir," his communications officer said carefully, "you want to offer them surrender terms? I want to give them a chance to end this war without destroying their entire civilization," Choi replied. This was something the galaxy had never seen before. The humans were winning the war completely, but they were offering their enemies a way to survive with honor. Captain Lee Dae-ho, who had been promoted to ambassador after the Galactic Council incident, opened a communication channel to the Vorthak homeworld. "Emperor Zexhai," Lee said to the alien ruler, "I am Ambassador Lee of the United Earth Defense Force. We are here to discuss the end of this war." On the main screen, the Vorthak Emperor appeared. He looked older and more tired than he had at the beginning of the conflict. Losing every battle for 3 months had taken its toll. "Human," Zexhai said with bitter respect, "you have defeated my fleets and liberated my conquered worlds. What more do you want?" "We want peace," Lee replied simply. "Peace?" The Emperor sounded confused. "You could destroy my homeworld. You could enslave my people as we enslaved others. Why do you offer peace?" "Because destroying civilizations is not what humans do," Lee explained. "We fight to protect innocent people, not to conquer them." The surrender terms that Ambassador Lee presented were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Vorthak Empire would give up all conquered territories and pay reparations to the species they had enslaved. But their homeworld would remain independent, and their people would be free to rebuild their civilization. "These terms are generous," Emperor Zexhai said slowly. "They are fair," Lee corrected. "Your empire caused great suffering, but your people deserve a chance to do better." Fleet Admiral No Yoon Seo commanded the blockade around the Vorthak homeworld while the negotiations continued. Her ships were positioned to stop any attempt to escape, but they were not attacking civilian targets. "Admiral," one of her captains asked over the communication system. The Vorthak are requesting permission to send medical supplies to their outer colonies. Should we allow it? Of course, No replied. 6 civilians are not our enemies. This attitude confused many of the alien observers who were watching the situation. Human behavior did not match any known pattern of conquest. Dr. Shin A. Young was studying the psychological impact of the human approach to warfare. What she found was remarkable. Admiral, she reported to Choi, we are receiving surrender offers from Vorthak commanders throughout the galaxy, not because they fear destruction, but because they respect how we have treated prisoners and civilians. Respect? Yes, sir. Many of them are saying they would rather serve under human leadership than continue fighting for an empire that only knows how to destroy things. On the surface of Haven Prime, Corporal Lee Min-young was still treating wounded aliens at the field hospital. But now she was also training local medical staff in human techniques. The important thing, she explained to a group of Kepler Coalition medics, is to treat everyone equally. It does not matter if they are your species or a former enemy. If someone is hurt, you help them. One of the medics, a young Kepler named Tikval, raised a crystalline hand. But what if they were trying to kill you yesterday? Then today you saved their life, Lee replied. That is how you break the cycle of hatred. The final moment of the war came not with a great battle, but with a simple ceremony. Emperor Zexhai traveled to the human flagship under a flag of truce to sign the surrender documents in person. I have ruled for 200 years, he told Ambassador Lee as they sat in the conference room. I have conquered 50 worlds and enslaved a dozen species. I thought power meant having the strongest weapons. What do you think it means now? Lee asked. I think power means having people who will follow you because they choose to, not because they fear you. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for generations watched as the mighty Vorthak Empire formally surrendered to the humans. But the most important moment came after the ceremony, when Veltar, the Kepler Coalition ambassador, stood up to speak. The humans came to save us when no one else would help, he said, his crystal body glowing with emotion. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand territory. They simply said that innocent people deserved protection. The camera turned. To show Ambassador Lee, who looked uncomfortable with all the attention. We did what anyone should do, Lee said quietly. We helped people who needed help. 6 months later, the Galactic Council met again on Nexus Prime. But this time, the human delegation was not standing at the back of the chamber. They had been given seats at the front, reserved for the galaxy's most important species. The Arcturian Prime Minister stood to address the assembly. The Council recognizes the establishment of the Terran Protectorate, a mutual defense agreement between humanity and 37 member species. Captain Song Hye-rin, now Admiral Song, was the human representative to the Protectorate. She looked out at the assembled aliens, many of whom had once dismissed humans as primitive. The Terran Protectorate exists to protect those who cannot protect themselves, she announced. Any species threatened by conquest or genocide can request our assistance. And what do you ask in return? Called out a representative from the Centauri Republic. Nothing, Admiral Song replied. Protection should not have a price. This caused a murmur of amazement throughout the chamber. The idea of military protection, without payment or political control, was revolutionary. Dr. Kim So-min had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Relations. She was working with former Vorthak colonies to help them rebuild their civilizations. The remarkable thing, she reported to the Council, is how quickly former enemies become allies when you treat them with respect and dignity. Can you give us an example? Asked the Silicon Confederacy representative. The Vorthak colony of Altair 7 was a military fortress used to launch attacks on peaceful systems. Today, it is a medical research station where Vorthak doctors work alongside human physicians to develop new treatments for alien diseases. In the audience, Emperor Zexhai listened to the proceedings with interest. His empire was gone, but his people were building something better. Several former Vorthak worlds had applied to join the Terran Protectorate. Humans are strange, he had told his advisors. They could have enslaved us, but instead they are teaching us how to live free. The ceremony concluded with Ambassador Lee being presented with the Galactic Peace Medal, the highest honor the Council could give. This medal belongs to every human who fought in this war, Lee said as he accepted the award. They did not fight for glory or conquest. They fought because it was right. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many stopped to speak with the human representatives. Species that had once laughed at humanity now wanted to establish trade, agreements, cultural exchanges, and military partnerships. But the most meaningful conversation happened between Veltar and Admiral Song. "I have a question," the Kepler Coalition ambassador said. "Why do humans help strangers? Your species could be rich and powerful if you conquered worlds instead of protecting them." Admiral Song thought about the question for a moment. "We tried the conquest approach once back when we were a young species. We fought wars against each other for thousands of years. We learned that winning by hurting others does not really make you strong. What does make you strong? Having people who trust you to do the right thing, even when no one is watching." The final scene took place on Earth, in a classroom where Dr. Kim So-min was teaching a group of mixed human and alien children about galactic history. "Can anyone tell me what the most important lesson of the Vorthak War was?" she asked. A young human girl raised her hand. "That having the best weapons does not make you the best people." "That is one lesson," Dr. Kim agreed. "Anyone else?" A Kepler Coalition child, his crystal body flickering with excitement, spoke up. "That sometimes the people who seem weakest are actually the strongest?" "Also true. But I think the most important lesson is this. It does not matter how advanced your technology is. What matters is whether you use it to help people or to hurt them." An adult voice spoke from the back of the classroom. "And humans always choose to help." Dr. Kim turned to see Ambassador Lee standing in the doorway, smiling at the mixed group of children. "That is what we try to do," Lee said. "We do not always succeed, but we always try." One of the alien children, a young Vorthak whose parents had joined the Protectorate, raised his hand. "Mr. Lee, will humans always protect us?" "As long as you need protection, and as long as we are able to provide it," Lee promised.